Hey everybody, this is Mary Grothy, and you're tuning in to my podcast, Destination Remarkable, the show where I chat about my journey through life from childhood to founding 3 companies to my venture launching 2 books with Forbes. Every week, I'll dive in and unveil the highs, the lows, and even the nitty-gritty details of my journey. It's raw, it's real. Let's get started. Hey, Destination Remarkable, this is Mary Grothy. I am going to address an issue today. Maybe it's not an issue, more so just a topic, but I know it's hard. And that is the fact that I'm a woman and I'm also a wife and a mom and a CEO. And it is just hard. It's interesting how some women, when they are looking at taking on executive or leadership roles, have to make a decision between being a wife, a mom, or taking that next step in their career. And I don't think that people truly understand, like not everyone understands how hard this really is. One, if you are not a woman, then it is very difficult for you to understand. And 2, if you are a woman, but maybe you're not married yet, you don't have kids, it's not as real for you in this moment or in this season. But for those of us, those of you like me who are wives, moms, and a senior leader or an executive, I hope that this is an opportunity for all of us to just band together and be honest about the challenges and we can talk through it. So for me, I've shared in my story that as a young professional, when I started at the payroll and HR company when I was 22, I never felt disadvantaged as a female. In fact, on my team, so I was a district sales assistant, I was an admin person for an 8-person sales team. And of those 8 people, half of them were women. And they were really talented. They were some of the top 10 reps in the country. They were selling hundreds of thousands of per year. They were making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. They're married, had kids, drove really nice cars. They wore all their designer suits and had their Coach bags and Michael Kors and their super fancy high heels. And, you know, I had it modeled for me that you can be a high performing female and also be married and have children. And so I never saw it as something I couldn't do or something that I couldn't have. Now, there's something very interesting about the sales profession is that you make your own hours. So I grew up in the sales profession, and as a salesperson, you have a lot of flexibility. So one of the things that I did not clue into is that I was seeing these women model how to be amazing as wives, moms, and professionals. But the trick to it is many of them never had to choose between being present at home or being present for their kids or working. Because in the sales profession, we were in outside sales. And I know that it has shifted with people working virtually or having desk jobs or having to work in an office. It's a little bit different now, but we were outside sales professionals. We had sales territories. And so ultimately, if you were hitting your number, management did not care how you were getting there. So a lot of these women were taking their kids to school or they were alternating with their spouse. And then they would check out early and go pick up the kid, get them home, get them situated, hop back on the computer as needed. A lot of them would pick up a few hours of work on the weekends for more of the non-client facing work that you have to do in the sales profession, like sending emails or preparing proposals or updating the CRM. But they were able to have this flexibility built into their life. And this was back in 2006. And so I saw from back then that it was possible to be a high-performing woman in a career, also being married, also having kids. And so for me, it was never a hurdle or barrier because I always had it modeled for me. Interestingly, though, when I started this, my company, it was started as Sales BQ at the end of 2017, I really went into the hustle and grind mode. And I did not have the mom hat on. Although I had seen it modeled for me that you could be a high-performing mom, a wife, and leader, I didn't go that route. In fact, I let the weight of being a startup CEO consume me. And I thought, if I'm going to be taken seriously and if I'm going to scale this company and hit the ground running and do very well, I have to give it everything that I have. And so for a period of 2.5 years, and my son was just over a year old when I started the company, I worked 100-hour work weeks. I was in the office, first one in. I would leave home at 5:45, get into the office by 6:15, start running meetings. I would even take calls while I was driving. I've joked ever since then. I work East Coast hours, even though I live in Colorado. And I would just hustle, hustle, hustle. I would drive in even when we were getting a blizzard. I had no mercy. Like, if I'm going to be a professional, I will show up and I'm going to be there. If I had a sick kid, I was like looking at my husband. Okay, figure it out. Stay home with him. Like, what do you want me to do? I cannot stay home. I am a CEO. I have a business. Like, you do that. And I wasn't home and I wasn't present. And I completely sidelined my family to scale my business. We started to grow. We got clients coast to coast. I had speaking engagements. I had 2 of them per month. I was traveling all the time, like every week. And I was never home. And for 2.5 years until COVID hit, I thought that work-life balance was a myth. I thought that as a wife, mom, and CEO, it was all about the support team. It was about having a supportive husband and my mother-in-law, who's unbelievable. And I thought, this is how it's supposed to be, because there's absolutely no way I can be a successful CEO and do things like leave at 2:45 so I can pick up my son at 3. It didn't even exist in my mind that that was an option. Well, unfortunately, I created that culture where then everyone felt like they had to work that way. So I employed a couple of young parents, and they thought, hey, if I'm going to be successful with this company, I have to do it the same way that Mary does. And that's really unfortunate, because I was a workaholic and I was breeding more of that, and people were sacrificing time with their families. And it's one of those things, just in hindsight, realizing that was very bad, very bad for me to model that. Unfortunately, it just felt like that's how business was done back in 2018, 2019. It was hustle and grind culture. The economy was so good. Everybody was spending money like it was a forever replenishing source. And it was fun. I really enjoyed being a startup CEO. I really, really enjoyed scaling the company. Unfortunately, COVID hits, I get grounded, but the greatest blessing is behind that, is that COVID gave me back to my family. The pandemic gave me back to my family. And all of a sudden, I'm home. And I'm sitting there with my family realizing I don't really have a strong relationship with my son. My marriage, it wasn't on the rocks or anything. It just wasn't really existing. I mean, it was a business relationship. It was more about the calendar and the schedule than it was about me being madly in love with my husband. And it was such an amazing opportunity. I'm so grateful for it, to reconnect. And as part of rebuilding my company and rebuilding my life at that time, I acknowledged that I could not treat my family that way anymore, and that there had to be a way that a woman could be an unbelievable wife, a wonderful mother, and be one of the best CEOs that has ever lived. Like, there has to be a way. What is the way? And I had to break down my belief systems on how I had built my company. And now, thankfully, again, the pandemic did me a lot of favors in this. Everybody was working from home. So I didn't have to go against the grain or mold or whatever the saying is. I didn't have to go against it. Everybody was doing it. Everybody had to learn how to do business virtually. Everybody had to learn how to have a culture inside of your organization when you didn't see each other face to face anymore. Everybody had to adapt. But one of the coolest things that came out of that period of time was that we were home. And so the parents who were employed on the team, we had a few at the time, could do things like step away for 15 minutes and go drive their kid to school and come back home and log back on. And I'm like, well, that's actually kind of a cool privilege. In fact, I started walking my son to school, which is fun. He was in pre-K at the time, or preschool. He was in preschool and then pre-K. But we started this thing where we could walk to school because it was just across the street. And it was amazing to be able to start my day having breakfast with my son, something I hadn't done in a very long time. And then I could hold his hand, his little sweet hand, walking across the street. And wasn't just across the street. I mean, there's like a few blocks in this walk, but there was enough time that he and I started to build a relationship and have conversations with each other, ask each other questions. He was 3.5 and really forming a personality. And it was the first time my son and I actually had a relationship. And we used those walks. I would walk him there and I'd walk him home. And it was one of the greatest times of my life. And I started to realize how much impact as a mom that I could have on my son. And I started to realize that it is such an amazing responsibility and an honor to be a mom, and that I can be a great mom and I can be an unbelievable wife to my husband. And I can also be a tremendous CEO. It's not perfect every day. It really isn't, but it starts at the top. I had to make it okay that we could put a block on our calendar in the mornings and afternoons, that we could cut out early for games, that we could cut out early for doctor's appointments, all the things that I just put on my husband that I was never present for. I just always felt like I have the responsibility in this family as the breadwinner, the CEO. I'm creating this legacy in the future. And there was an element during that time too that I got to deepen the relationship with my mother-in-law, because it's always been a very interesting relationship with her because of the past trauma and wounds that I've had with my own relationship with my mom. And to finally take a step back and realize how much Gigi did voluntarily, sacrificially to help raise my son when I wasn't present. And of course, she'd do it all over again. She loves that little guy so much. Their relationship is so beautiful. They're besties. And I realized that my mother-in-law, in my own absence as a mother, never questioned. She was just always there. She never said no. She always stepped in. And I started to realize, not every person has this. And I'm extremely fortunate. So I got to deepen my relationship with her and start to feel like, what is a mother-daughter relationship? Because up until this point, I guarantee I had no idea. I knew the one that I had, and I knew that that was atypical, not healthy. And so I, through this period, started to realize that as a leader in the community, as a CEO, as a wife and a mom and a professional, that embracing the team around me and the support staff around me, strengthening my relationships with them, that it was okay. So interestingly, COVID, the pandemic caused the pendulum in my life to swing the other way. Now I was home and always present, so I barely needed Gigi. I wasn't traveling at all. So Gigi went from being like one of the top caregivers in our family to I was doing everything, and I became so accustomed to that. But then y'all know the story. So 2021 in the business, the company doubled in size. I started getting sucked back into work, what I said I would never do, but I started doing it again, traveling again, working long hours. And Gigi had to step up again, and she did. And she was helping out tremendously. And it is unreal, the mom guilt I had during that time. Because I went from like the pendulum swung to where now I was number one in my son's life. But then work started to be number one in my life again. And I was building this machine. It was a monster. It was a train rolling down the track so fast and I couldn't stop it. And I had no choice but to stay on the train and just like try to hold everything in place that I possibly could. And it was taking up everything in my life and taking everything out of me. And then that pendulum swung back. And all of a sudden I feel again like the worst wife, the worst mom. And I entered into a state while I was dealing with all sorts of anxiety and depression, as you've heard me speak about, but now the mom guilt came in and I felt like an absolute failure. And guess what happened in 2021? My son started school. He started kindergarten. And I just put my foot down because I was in such disbelief that I let this happen. And I said, no, I'm going to take my son to school every day and I'm going to pick him up at 3:00 and I'm getting my schedule back and I'm just going to block myself out and I'm just not even going to be at work during those hours. And it was hard because this was right around the time when we were peaking up to 28 employees, We were launching Revenue Academy. We were in the thick of a little side business that we launched called Revenue Studio. I was up to here. Let's just not lie. I'm pointing to my head for those of you not watching, to the top of my head. I wasn't up to the top of my head. I was drowning. The water was a mile above my head. And so I did the dumbest thing, which was have pride and try to convince myself I was a good mom by restricting my schedule when my company really needed me the most. And then I just started to disconnect from work and dumping all of my problems on an executive team that wasn't trained and wasn't ready to handle it so that I could go be present for my son. Well, guess what happened? Now everything's falling apart because I'm there picking up my son and dropping him off, but I wasn't present and I wasn't a good mommy and I wasn't in a good state of being. And so I was negative, I was sad, I was depressed. So sure, like physically I am doing the act of picking up my son, but I was on calls the entire time. I was troubleshooting, trying to solve problems. I wasn't present with him. I was completely ignoring him. I would pick him up. We would be sitting at home at 3:00. I would be on back-to-back calls. He's 5 years old. He's in this new transition in life as a kindergartner, and I'm completely ignoring him. I'm picking him up. I can't even ask how his day was because majority of the time I was like on a call when he was getting loaded into the car in the pickup line. But by golly, I was going to do it all. And I'm going to pick up my kid and I'm going to be this mom and I'm also going to run this company. And I was just stopped asking for help. All of this fed into then that nervous breakdown, mental breakdown that I've spoken about. And the realization, again, through healing and reflection is I need to give myself a break. Like, I don't have to do all these things for all of these people. I have the most amazing husband, and he is such an incredible dad. And then we have Gigi, and Gigi is the most remarkable mother I've ever met in my entire life. I am so grateful for this woman. She has been my backup. She has been the backup mom to all of us. She's a backup mom for me. She's a number one mom for my husband, obviously. But she steps in as that mom figure for me a lot with my son. And it's actually okay because as a unit, as a family, we get to define this. And I do believe I get to do God's work through this business that has been restored. Trust me, I was not doing God's work through this business in 2021. I was doing someone else's work. I adopted a vision and it wasn't mine and it wasn't from the Lord. And I was going down a very material path and worshiping recognition, money, revenue, profit, P&Ls, growth, awards. Okay, that's not what God has for us, just so we're all clear. Those things don't serving people, loving people, taking your amazing gifts and skills and what you were created for and who you are and spreading the love and goodness and kindness into this world, which everyone so desperately needs it. Like we can be the love and light. That is the calling on my life. These are my platforms. And I just happen to get to do it through the marketplace. God created this path for me and he gave me these gifts and talents, and I don't take that lightly. And so I'm at this unbelievable place in my life. I think back to the beginning of this story of me seeing it modeled for me, these unbelievable women who were wives, moms, and top 10 reps making very good money and just being great humans in this world. And I'm so grateful that I had it modeled for me because I have never felt disadvantaged as a woman. I have never felt that I've been underpaid, underappreciated. I've had some shoddy situations with men. Like I've had it. That's fine. I'm over it. It doesn't matter. Some investor I was talking to a few months ago said to me on an investor call when I was representing one of my clients that I'm an investor in. And he said, I don't mean to blow smoke up your skirt. And I'm like, whoa, dude, it is not 1950. Like we don't speak about women that way, but it's, I have grace. I didn't react. It is what it is, but I don't let it, I don't live offended. I don't let it affect me. So on that note, as I've entered into this season, I realize like this is such a powerful topic that I want to bring into the world. That as a leader, as a CEO, as an executive, please create space within your company for your parents to be parents. They get one shot at being a parent in life. And if your workday and your schedule is so restrictive, now I'm not saying 5 days a week, they need to take their kids, pick up their kids and work half days and be a part of everything. I understand that that's not realistic. We don't do it that way here. We do require 1 to 2 days, full days in the office and
I'm in the office 3 days a week, but I take my son to school Mondays and Fridays, and I pick him up at 3 o'clock on Mondays and Fridays, and I don't do any work after 3 o'clock. The laptop is shut down. The phone is not in my hands. And it is me and my son. We're building trains and playing and, just having a great time together. We're at the park or whatever it is that we're doing, but it's our time. And then Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, those are my days. I'm all in the office. I am all in as a CEO, and I am pouring into my team and into our clients. And it's amazing time. And then I still get off in time to be able to go pick up my son by 4:30 from the after school program. However, there are times when I need to stay past 5, or there are days that I travel, and Gigi and my husband are unbelievable. And as a unit, as a team, full of just love and grace inside of our family, we just build the calendar and we do it and we figure it out, and everybody wins, and there's no stress and there's no pressure, and everybody gets to show up fully in all areas of their lives. And it's just such a blessing. So as a CEO, I want to empower you to say it can be done, to build flexibility into your schedule so that your employees, your team, who are parents, that they can be present and they can do these things in their kids' life. Life is far too short. You got to do it. And then as a woman, if you are a mom and you're a professional, I want to give you the courage, and I want you to forgive yourself, number one, if you have any mom guilt. And then I want you to be brave to go have the conversation with your employer. If you have restriction, just start small. Hey, would it be okay if 1 day a week I was able to do this, or on Mondays and Fridays, or, ask, go for it, make the ask. Employers seem pretty flexible these days. You might just get that yes. But for anyone else listening, maybe it's the men, maybe it's the grandmas, maybe it's the friends, it's the aunts, uncles, siblings, all of you who are support to the working professional in your life who has children. Just thank you. Thank you for being there for them. Thank you for being on the pickup rotation or being a backup. Thank you for loving that professional hard worker and allowing them to be able to share their gifts and their talents with the world, to earn money, to contribute to society, to get to flex that muscle and to contribute and to serve, and helping them in the areas of their lives where they need it. Being a spouse and a parent and a professional is hard. But my goal with this episode today is that you feel encouraged that it is possible to have it all.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in connecting with me, you can find me, Mary Grothe, spelled Grothe, on LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram.